Supporters of Burkina Faso's military leader have called for a mass rally in support of the junta after the government said it had foiled an attempted coup and accused America and France of influencing the country's politics. Since Traoré came to power, the military government has cracked down on dissent, kidnappings and arbitrary arrests of both civilian critics and army personnel accused of plotting coups, which have increased. Here is our cover report.
Breaking. Tensions are rising in Burkina Faso, but something extraordinary is happening. As whispers of coup attempts swirl and international eyes lock onto Ouagadougou, the people are rising, not in revolt, but in unwavering solidarity behind one man, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. In a region no stranger to instability, where leadership is often tested by fire, Traoré stands at the center of a political storm. Yet instead of scattering in fear, thousands of supporters are rallying in the streets, waving flags, chanting his name, and declaring their loyalty with unshakable passion.
Since assuming leadership of Burkina Faso in September 2022, Captain Ibrahim Traoré has spearheaded a bold transformation, breaking away from the entrenched foreign influence and steering the country towards self-reliance. His administration has challenged traditional power dynamics, driven economic reforms, and ignited renewed sense of sovereignty. But on April 3rd this year, while delivering a testimony on the U.S. Africa Command posture, U.S. Marine Corps General Michael Langley had a unique perspective on the leadership in Burkina Faso and Sudan.
So, what's driving this fierce loyalty? Is it his bold anti-imperialist stance? His defiance of French military presence? Or his vow to return the power to the people and reclaim national dignity? Whatever the reason, one thing is certain: Burkina Faso is uniting in ways few predicted, and the world is watching. Today, we take you deep into the heart of this movement. We'll examine the coup allegations, what triggered them, and why so many Burkinabe are choosing to stand with Traoré at a time when other nations might fracture. This isn't just politics. This is about identity, sovereignty, and the battle for Africa's future.
African heads of state must stop behaving like puppets that dance every time the imperialists pull the strings. When we, the people, decide to defend ourselves, we are labeled as militias, but that's not the issue here. The problem is seeing African heads of state who bring nothing to these people who are fighting, but who sing the same tune as the imperialists, by labeling us as militias, thus calling us men who do not respect human rights. What human rights are we talking about? We are outraged by this, and it is shameful.
Recently, the president of Uganda, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, narrated to the world why and when African leaders were prepared to fly to Libya to mediate, they were stopped by NATO and they were not allowed to go to Tripoli in Libya because NATO had taken the decision that Gaddafi must die.
Standing strong amidst renewed coup allegations. On January 14, 2024, Burkina Faso's transitional government announced it had successfully thwarted yet another coup attempt, the fourth since Captain Ibrahim Traoré assumed power in September 2022. The revelation once again highlighted the deep-rooted political instability and ongoing threats that continue to plague the West African nation. According to government officials, this latest attempt involved a well-organized network of military personnel and civilians, including both active duty and retired officers. The group allegedly aimed to destabilize state institutions, seize power from the transitional government, and reverse the country's trajectory towards self-determination and national restoration.
The meticulous work of the intelligence services would reveal a major plot in preparation against our country, the ultimate goal of which is to sow total chaos with a view to placing the country under the supervision of an international organization capable of regaining control in 10 or 20 years, depending on the instigators. Sensitive information was passed to the terrorists with a view to intensifying attacks against the fighting forces and civilians, with the aim of sparking a revolt against the authorities.
Intelligence reports pointed to a broader conspiracy. suggesting that the coup plotters were receiving financial and logistical support from foreign sources. Though the government did not disclose the specific identities of these external actors, the implications were clear. Burkina Faso's internal political struggles are increasingly entangled in regional and international power plays. This revelation raised alarm about foreign interference in the country's affairs, with authorities framing the attempted coup as not merely a domestic insurrection, but part of a calculated plan to drag the nation back into division and turmoil. In the wake of the announcement, security forces acted decisively, arresting suspects, conducting raids, and opening investigations to determine the full extent of the operation. The government vowed transparency and justice, asserting that those responsible would be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Officials emphasized that defending the integrity of the transitional process and safeguarding national sovereignty were non-negotiable priorities. Public reaction to the foiled coup was swift and passionate. Thousands of citizens rallied in Ouagadougou and other major cities, waving Burkinabe flags and chanting slogans of solidarity. The outpouring of support for Captain Traoré and the transitional government reflected a deep-rooted desire among the population to move beyond cycles of coups and instability. Many citizens saw this latest attempt as a threat not only to the leadership, but to their collective vision of a stronger, more independent Burkina Faso. In a nationally televised address, Traoré expressed gratitude for the public's unwavering support. He reaffirmed his administration's commitment to justice, peace, and national unity, pledging to resist any forces seeking to undermine the people's will. "We will not allow the enemies of progress to succeed," he declared. "The Burkinabe people have chosen resilience, not regression." The thwarted coup reinforced both the fragility and the determination of a country still fighting for its future, one defined by sovereignty, security, and a people unwilling to surrender hard-fought gains. A leader with a vision. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a former artillery officer in the Burkinabe military, emerged as a national figure of hope and change following his coup in September 2022. The ousting of interim leader Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba came amid widespread frustration over the government's failure to contain an increasingly deadly jihadist insurgency. Traoré quickly distanced himself from typical strongman narratives, presenting instead a vision of transitional leadership aimed at restoring peace, rebuilding institutions, and setting the stage for a future democratic order.
In 2022, amid a wave of growing unrest in Burkina Faso, a relatively unknown army captain named Ibrahim Traoré took control of the country through a military coup. At the time, his name meant little to those outside the region. But in the years since, Traoré's profile has risen rapidly. His rise has drawn frequent parallels to Thomas Sankara, the iconic Burkinabe revolutionary who in 1983 came to power as a young officer with a radical message of self-reliance, anti-imperialism, and African pride. Like Sankara, Traoré has embraced the imagery and language of liberation, positioning himself as a modern-day continuation of that revolutionary lineage.
From the outset, Traoré's administration prioritized a multi-pronged approach to national renewal. Key among these was the modernization of the armed forces, equipping both regular troops and civilian auxiliaries with better training, equipment, and logistical support. Simultaneously, reforms were launched in the agricultural sector to boost food production, strengthen rural economies, and reduce dependency on foreign aid. Education reform was another major pillar, with initiatives designed to improve access, quality, and infrastructure, especially in regions impacted by conflict. Healthcare, long neglected in rural areas, was also placed under renewed focus. The government began allocating more resources toward clinics, mobile health units, and public health campaigns, aiming to close the gap between urban and rural access to medical services. To further decentralize development, regional plans were unveiled to bring government services closer to the people and foster local decision-making. These initiatives struck a chord, particularly with youth, civil society groups, and marginalized communities who had long felt excluded from national progress. In May 2024, Traoré's government extended the transitional military rule by an additional 5 years. Though this move was criticized by some political factions and international observers, the administration defended it as a pragmatic decision in the face of persistent insecurity. According to Traoré and his supporters, holding premature elections could destabilize hard-won gains. They argue that building lasting democratic foundations requires patience, inclusive governance, and above all, national stability. Mobilization and public support. A defining feature of Captain Ibrahim Traoré's leadership has been the widespread grassroots support he has garnered across Burkina Faso. This popular backing was clearly demonstrated on September 30th, 2024, when the National Coordination of Citizen Watch Associations, CNAVC of Hawaii, organized a large-scale rally marking the second anniversary of governance under the Patriotic Movement for Safeguard and Restoration, MPSR. The event was both a public expression of gratitude and a reaffirmation of loyalty to Traoré's administration.
The ruling elite of a country is receiving gratuities on the side that inure to the benefit of the strongman leader.
I see this, and I don't mind calling them out, but Captain Traoré and Burkina Faso, as they know that both, whether it's their gold reserves, that is all those proceeds are just in exchange to protect the junta regime.
That statement has stoked outrage across the continent.
Participants at the rally highlighted several achievements credited to his leadership. Among the most frequently cited were notable improvements in national security, renewed efforts in revitalizing the education sector, and significant increases in agricultural investment. The enhanced capacity of the Defense and Security Forces, FDS, and the Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland, VDP, was also celebrated. These security forces, often deployed in difficult and resource-scarce environments, have made tangible gains in reclaiming areas previously under extremist control. Under Traoré, their access to modern equipment, structured training programs, and logistical infrastructure has been markedly improved. Beyond military efforts, public mobilization around local development has surged. Communities across the country are actively participating in initiatives aimed at rebuilding and improving daily life. Town councils, religious leaders, youth groups, and civil society organizations have collaborated on projects addressing essential needs such as clean water access, sanitation, road repair, and school construction. This civic engagement is more than symbolic. It reflects a growing belief that ordinary citizens have a role to play in national recovery. Traoré's administration has thus far successfully tapped into a sense of collective responsibility and national pride. While challenges remain, the surge in public support and civic activism suggests a hopeful momentum toward a more secure, self-reliant, and participatory future for Burkina Faso. Reforms and restructuring. Since assuming power, Ibrahim Traoré has undertaken significant reforms aimed at overhauling Burkina Faso's military and strengthening national defense. One of his first actions was to purge elements linked to past regimes. 16 military officers were dismissed for conduct deemed incompatible with the new vision, including former junta leader Paul-Henri Damiba, now in exile and accused of involvement in destabilization plots.
On March 14, 2025, Burkina Faso, through the country's Prime Minister, Jean-Emmanuel Ouedraogo, and the head of state Ibrahim Traoré, took a bold step that is sure to rattle governments worldwide, and most especially our own African puppets. Prime Minister Jean-Emmanuel presented a comprehensive overview of the nation's progress just over the past 12 months to the Transitional Legislative Assembly, and they were massive. This presentation highlighted the government's significant achievements, ongoing challenges, and future prospects.
The restructuring extended well beyond personnel changes. A revised command hierarchy was introduced to enhance coordination and operational efficiency within the armed forces. Alongside this, new accountability mechanisms were established to enforce ethical standards and improve discipline among soldiers. In a landmark move, the government also released a formal national defense strategy, its first, defining clear goals such as combating terrorism, securing borders, and improving civil-military relations. A cornerstone of these reforms has been the enhanced integration of the Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland, VDP, a civilian auxiliary force. Thousands of volunteers, many from regions devastated by extremist violence, have undergone advanced training in tactical operations, first aid, and reconnaissance. Their local knowledge and deep commitment to defending their communities have made them critical assets in stabilizing volatile areas, particularly in the north and east. Traoré's reform agenda reflects a broader effort to professionalize the military, reclaim national sovereignty, and build resilience against internal and external threats. While the restructuring process has not been without controversy, especially regarding the purging of high-ranking officers, many view it as a necessary step toward rebuilding a functional and trustworthy security apparatus. As Burkina Faso continues to confront persistent security challenges, these reforms may prove pivotal in shaping a more stable and self-reliant future. Navigating international relations. Under Ibrahim Traoré's leadership, Burkina Faso's foreign policy has undergone a significant transformation, signaling a clear departure from traditional Western alliances. One of the most consequential moves was the expulsion of French troops and the termination of several military cooperation agreements with France, the country's former colonial ruler. Supporters lauded these actions as a bold reclaiming of national sovereignty and a step toward charting a new independent path.
In a shocking and unexpected move, the US has launched a vicious attack accusing Captain Ibrahim Traoré of misusing Burkina Faso's precious gold reserves to protect his so-called junta regime. To add insult to injury, a Level 4 travel advisory has been issued, citing terrorism, crime, and kidnapping in a clear attempt to smear the nation's reputation and isolate it globally. But hear this, Burkina Faso stands unbowed. Under Captain Traoré's bold leadership, the country is seizing control of its future, and no Western propaganda can extinguish its fire.
In a strategic pivot, Traoré has sought closer ties with Russia and other non-Western powers. In April 2025, Russia pledged formal military support to the juntas of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. The assistance package includes weapons shipments, military advisors, and intelligence sharing agreements. This collaboration coincided with the formalization of the Alliance of Sahel States, a regional bloc focused on counterterrorism and economic development. The AES plans to deploy a joint 5,000-strong military force to target jihadist strongholds across the Sahel. Backed by Russian resources, the coalition has gained enhanced capabilities to conduct coordinated operations. While critics argue that the growing reliance on Russia may lead to new forms of geopolitical dependency, proponents of the shift see it as a necessary recalibration, one that enables the region to confront its challenges without undue foreign interference. International reactions have been divided. Several Western governments have expressed concern over the alliance, citing setbacks in democratic governance and growing authoritarianism in the region. Nonetheless, many African countries have voiced support for Burkina Faso's stance, viewing it as a legitimate assertion of sovereignty and a rejection of neo-colonial influence. As the geopolitical landscape shifts, Traoré's government remains at the center of a broader continental debate about autonomy, security, and the future of African diplomacy in a multipolar world. Challenges and controversies. Despite notable strides under Ibrahim Traoré's leadership, his administration has been plagued by ongoing allegations of human rights violations and authoritarian practices. Concerns have emerged about the suppression of journalists, civil society actors, and political dissenters. Online groups sympathetic to the government have reportedly launched coordinated smear campaigns against critics, with some incidents escalating to harassment and arrests.
This how you know this is the greatest president they ever lived. They having a mega rally all over the world. everybody is supporting Ibrahim Traoré. You hear me? We gonna be live in Dallas City Hall on the 30th, man. I'm not playing with these people. Boy, I'm about to put on my red, my black, my green, and we about to take to the streets, and we gonna be the real ninjas that we supposed to be.
What happened in Libya to Gaddafi must never ever happen again to an African in Africa. Leave Captain Ibrahim alone. Leave Africa alone. I start with Burkina Faso. I start with Captain Ibrahim, and I start for Africa. We are Africans, we stand for each other. Leave Captain Ibrahim alone. Leave Burkina Faso alone.
In March 2025, Human Rights Watch documented the arrest of 3 well-known journalists following a press conference held by the Journalists Association. During the event, the group condemned the junta's tightening grip on media freedom. The arrest sparked international condemnation from press freedom advocates who warned that stifling the press could erode public trust and threaten the transparent discourse vital to democratic transition. Additional reports point to alarming claims of forced disappearances and the operation of undisclosed detention centers. Although the transitional government has denied these accusations and pledged to conduct internal inquiries, skepticism remains widespread among observers and international partners. These developments pose a critical challenge to Traoré's legitimacy, both domestically and abroad. Balancing the urgent demands of national security with the protection of civil liberties is emerging as one of the administration's greatest tests. While the fight against armed insurgencies and the effort to rebuild state institutions remain pressing, doing so without compromising fundamental freedoms is essential. Failing to uphold democratic norms could undermine the very institutions the transitional government claims to restore. The road ahead. Looking forward, the future of Burkina Faso will depend on the government's ability to maintain security while preparing for a credible transition to civilian rule. Although the 5-year extension of military rule provides a window for stabilization, it must be used wisely. The transitional leadership has pledged to hold democratic elections if and when the security environment improves, but no specific timetable has been released.
The urgent public utility declaration, the project for the construction of a training and research unit in sciences and techniques, and a university campus at the Duri University Center. So it should be recalled that Burkina Faso, in collaboration with partners, obtained funding for the construction of a Faculty of Science and Technology and a university campus at the Duri University Center. This funding was obtained since 2020. A site had indeed been identified with an area of about 100 hectares, but it must be noted that from then until now, the work has not been able to start due to the unavailability of these sites. Despite numerous discussions and the negotiations that followed, the sites remain inaccessible for the erection of these various infrastructures. Therefore,
the success of the alliance of Sahel states will also be critical. If the joint force proves effective in curbing extremist violence, it could serve as a model for regional security cooperation. However, the sustainability of this initiative will depend on continued funding, discipline, and clear political objectives. Domestically, the government must continue engaging with civil society to foster inclusive governance. Programs aimed at youth empowerment, women's rights, and local economic development should be prioritized. These initiatives not only promote stability, but also reduce the appeal of extremist ideologies. Captain Traoré remains a polarizing figure. For many, he is a courageous reformer who has challenged neo-colonial structures and stood up for national sovereignty. For others, he is an authoritarian ruler who has extended his grip on power under the pretext of security. The reality likely lies somewhere in between. Ultimately, Burkina Faso's path forward will require careful navigation, transparent governance, and a commitment to justice and inclusivity. As the country faces both internal and external pressures, the resilience and unity of its people remain its most potent tools for securing a brighter future. As the dust settles and the rumors swirl, one undeniable truth remains. Ibrahim Traoré is not standing alone. In the face of uncertainty, fear, and geopolitical pressure, the people of Burkina Faso have drawn a line in the sand, and they've drawn it behind their captain. This defiance against chaos, this unity against disruption, speaks volumes about where the soul of the nation lies. While accusations fly and foreign powers speculate, the message from the ground is loud and clear. Traoré is not just a leader, he's a symbol of resistance, pride, and Pan-African hope. But where does this lead? Will this wave of loyalty be enough to withstand the pressure of global narratives and internal challenges? Or is another twist around the corner for a country that has already endured so much? One thing is for sure, Burkina Faso's story is far from over, and Ibrahim Traoré's chapter may just be beginning. If you're inspired by what's unfolding, or if you're watching from afar with questions, hit that like button, subscribe, and join the conversation in the comments. Because what's happening in Burkina Faso today might just shape the face of West Africa tomorrow.